Thank you so much for joining in. Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF from the Psychological Healing Center. And tonight's topic is about why it is so important that in couples therapy, we include individual therapy. Couples therapy must include individual therapy. And in a nutshell, I'll tell you what's different from the way I work now compared to the way I worked before I had a mind map. And in the past, when I was in training as a psychologist, I was taught to do couples therapy. And what it ended up being was a boxing match, pretty much, or a wrestling match. And I was the referee, and the couples were in there trying to bash each other. Nobody understood what was truly triggering them from a causal level. And, you know, in the best case scenario, I taught them good communication skills enough so that they can get through a good enough conversation. And now I see that that's absolutely not good enough. So, as many of you know, I do not concentrate on symptom management. I'm not big on techniques. I think there's a place for them. Certainly, it's just that they have to be in the context of a bigger picture, which I'm going to break down for you. And today, of course, as always, I'm welcoming call-ins 323-524-2599. And for those of you who have not yet received of my copy of my book, either in PDF form or in copy form through Amazon, there it is, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And it breaks down my entire mind map system, as does my mind map video series, which you can purchase. And that comes along with the PDF and a journal as well, so that you can understand the flow of the mind map, which basically is a flow of taking a look at childhood wounds, how they infect us and encode in us, how they take us down into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, and how to morph out of all the mess. So if you are a couple in crisis, please, please, please make sure that you take the mind map approach. And I'm going to be that blunt about it, because if you go into this individual type of therapy, again, you're back to communication skills, and you're not really learning that your wounds of childhood in an intimate relationship are coming together. So if we look at the mind map, you can look at the structure of the mind map, and panel 1, you could see wounds of childhood, and how we react to them and how we encode in them. So imagine Mary and Bill come into therapy, and let's say we don't even touch on these wounds, and we're just trying to somehow get them through a marriage and communication skills and better their ability to understand each other. Well, we're missing out on quite a bit. And if we look very deeply into childhood wounds, I'm going to again go over it. Many of you know what these wounds refer to, but I will go over them again and again. So there are 5 basic ones, and then a 6th one, which I will explain in a little bit more detail. Wounds include, obviously, the abuses and the neglect. So the abuses include physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, emotional neglect and smothering, controlling. And then we also have the abuse of the narcissistic abuse, which is where the parents put their own needs before the child. And that kind of bleeds into the control and the smothering, because in a narcissistic system gone wrong, as I like to call it, what happens is the child is an extension of the parent, rather than the parent helping that child correctly bond and offer unconditional love, and then support them in the individuation process, meaning support them to become whole human beings, and then eventually hatch out of the family nest. They pull them in to control them, to be a kind of an agent, if you will, to carry out their agenda. It's a really ugly thing, and it's a trap. And as I like to say, childhood is a hostage situation. You cannot help who your parents are, However, you can heal from this hostage situation. And so, couple comes in, and let's say one person's wounds are neglect, and another person's wounds are verbal abuse. And then, in the context of the relationship, they then have reactions whenever one activates the other one's wound. And then these activations actually trigger these horrible core beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm a loser, I shouldn't have been born, I'm not important, I'll never be important enough to be number one, I'm not capable. And so these little what I call these surface arguments about the garbage and about all of these daily tasks and performances have much deeper meaning. It's not the surface thing in and of itself. It's not about taking out the garbage. It's not about you forgot the groceries. It's not about you didn't bring me flowers. It's not about get off the cell phone. But these things are setups for triggers like I'm not important, or I'll never be good enough, or no matter what I do, I can never please you. So if you don't get down to the root of these issues, then you're going to be, again, back in this symptom management mode, which can get very, very lengthy, very, very expensive. And for those of you who know me, I like to keep therapy extremely focused and extremely short as possible, because nobody wants to spend tons of time and money in therapy. So typically, couples therapy is a 25 session journey. So 10 sessions are spent on the individual journey for one partner, 10 for the other, and then woven into the journey is the couples counseling. And in the couples counseling is an opportunity for each person in the relationship to understand each other's wounds so that they can develop an empathy for each other, to really know the inside job. So instead of having these trigger happy situations, they can understand the Achilles heel of the partner. And this is a call-in show, everybody. I would love to hear from you. And the number is 323-524-2599. And you are aware that we give free consultations, and you're very welcome to have a full consultation or a 15-minute free consultation with a member of our staff, and find out really the depth of these triggers that are causing you chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. Now, another main reason it is so important to include individual therapy in couples therapy, and also vice versa. Let me address that as well. It's important when you go into individual therapy, if you're married, that your partner understands this process, because the last thing that I want to see happen, that we at the Psychological Healing Center want to see happen, is for the therapy to create a rift in the relationship. We are very big fans of losing the problem and not the person. So if we can heal these inner child wounds and address the wounds that cause reactions and cause core beliefs that then set up trigger points for the couple, we'd rather have the individual who, let's say, signs up for individual therapy and is complaining about the partner, we would much rather invite the partner in to also do some work so that they can grow together and they can be on a pathway to supporting each other and creating a synergistic relationship. So I hope somebody calls in, because I really do like to dissect this from a mind map perspective. It's always more interesting when I have a live case study, and I'm going to be doing more of that on the radio show. I am going to be having a guest on the show who did the entire mind map process and completely did 180 paradigm shift. And I think it's important for people to understand that healing is possible in a short amount of time. I think it's important for people to be aware of what this process looks like, not just from my perspective, but from the perspective of somebody who has been through it. So I'm looking forward to our guests. I'll be announcing it, of course, via email and announcements when she will be coming on. I'm very excited for her because she seriously did a huge paradigm shift, and her cracked lens of perception has healed so much, and she sees herself in a completely different way. And that's the point of couples therapy, because when we look at our partners, we're looking through the lens of our wounds, and we're looking through the lens of our pain, and reacting through the lens of our pain. And of course, in an ideal world, our partners are supposed to have our backs. Our partners are supposed to be able to soothe us. Our partners are supposed to be able to know our Achilles heel, and instead of using our Achilles heel emotionally against us, they're supposed to understand and empathize and not step on that delicate area. Was that a call in?
We do have a call, Dr. Judy.
My ears are getting better. All right. Thank you so much for calling in. And hello, you are on the couch. What is your name, please?
Hi, my name is Krista. Can you hear me?
I'm so happy to have you call in. So we
Okay.
spoke a little, thank you. We spoke a little bit. And so just tell me your goal for this particular call in, and then I'll do my mind mapping and dissect everything for you.
Okay, so my goal with this call is basically to get like a better understanding of how to get past some of the triggers that the narcissist brings to the table with divorce and parenting plan. Like I'm really at an all-time situation. Like for instance, Monday I was at work and I decided it really wasn't a good day to have a visit. I'm not here, and I like to be here when the drop-off happens or the pickup.
How old are the kids?
And it's just one, and he's 14 years old. He's a teenager. But I made it clear to Blake I don't want his dad in the house. And when I came home, he had already been in the house changing light bulbs. Like, what's going on? Is he hoovering? What's happening here?
Yeah.
So I realized there's a level of like discomfort that I had because he gives off these hormones, like the scent. And I don't want that around me. It was crucial that when I woke up, and I'm really awake by this whole process, been studying your program and understanding the level of, it's a real mental illness, but understanding that this relationship was never anything to him. Wrapping my mind around that. And I'm going through that phase now where I'm starting to shift, but I still feel really uncomfortable, even when he's with Blake, because it's like suddenly with a 4-year-old,
Okay, so even though we're talking about the tail end of this, I'm talking about couples therapy. I'm sorry that I didn't know you before. And, some marriages are not rescuable. Is that a word? They're just not.
Right.
Sometimes, especially in the case of narcissistic abuse, which I see as a system gone wrong, where the person who is now behaving in a self-centered, demeaning, devaluing, and destroying fashion is replicating, they're doing a what the Freud, repeat on within the relationship. And so sometimes what happens is that, let's say you are engaged in your what the Freud, and his wounds and your wounds, so to speak, coalesce and then take both of you down, which is probably what happened because you're no longer together. Now you have the aftermath, and you have your beautiful son. And one of the things that I've certainly learned when you're breaking up with anybody is that you don't want to see them, you don't want to smell them, you don't want to hear them, you don't want to be triggered by them in any sense of the word, because because these memories, they go deep, and then they can trigger all of this, sexuality and so on, and the drug-ish part of the relationship. And is that what you're referring to, that you don't want to see him or smell him, or you don't want his hormones
Oh
around?
yeah, because I had, yes, ma'am, I had a very difficult time. It was like I was in withdrawal when he first left, and I
Right.
couldn't have him next to me because I felt like he's like got a satanic spirit about him.
Yeah, and people refer to
I
this
mean,
spirit, and I, that's why sometimes I refer to getting out the poison as kind of like an emotional exorcism, if you will. Okay, and in the
well, that, yes, yes,
right, right. So sometimes people get violently ill, emotionally ill, and they feel like throwing up, and they go through, a withdrawal that's heavier than withdrawing from heroin. And this is referred
yeah,
to in books as love addiction. Pia Melody talks about this, withdrawing from love addiction. They have programs around this. So it's very unfortunate that he's in your home and that you have to parent with him. That's tough.
he's
Okay.
not in my home. He's not in my home. I threw him out. I run here all by
Okay.
myself. He has
Okay.
no business. He has no business coming in. It was the 8 months no contact.
Okay. So I was
I don't
thinking
talk to
about,
him at all.
okay, when he was
Mm-mm.
um
So just Monday when
light
he
bulb.
came to have a visit with Blake,
Gotcha.
yeah, like he had no business coming in this house, and Blake decided that, like, when I asked him
Mm-hmm.
what was he doing in here, and he said he just barged his way in. So he has a very grandiose way about him,
Yes.
still.
Yes.
And
So
I feel like he triggered me. It took me all the way back. I mean, I've been in the bed for 3 days.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, intermittently, but I mean, it just, I had to put my strict boundaries up, and I wouldn't respond to his email, which it sounded like no one was home writing it. It sounded like someone else wrote it. But
So
I projected my feelings onto my son
okay.
because I thought it was my son who was like trying to booby trap me with his dad to take me down emotionally.
Okay, it gets really
That's how bad it was.
complicated. It's very, very complicated, and good for you that you set the boundary, because seriously, you don't want to be activated like this and then bedridden for 3 days. Unacceptable. You deserve to be free of this. So let's go back to childhood wounds, and maybe we could look at, 2020 hindsight, right? Hopefully a little bit better,
Yeah.
and you've been studying the mind map. So if you're okay with it, please share what
Yeah.
you think your childhood wounds were and what you think his childhood wounds were.
I really believe that my childhood wounds are ones that are like, my dad was an alcoholic,
Okay,
and he also, he inappropriately molested me.
I'm so sorry.
He was, oh my God, I'm telling you, me too. But
Mhm.
I believe that was at the root cause because my husband, I feel like I married my father. My father did this to my mother. And I really grieved the divorce that she went through, and I grieved the abuse that she went through and the abuse that we received
Okay, so
from
you
him
married, your
growing up.
father was is your ex an alcoholic as well?
Yes, he's an alcoholic. He's addicted to cocaine.
Okay, and
He's
sexually.
addicted to sex. I mean, every job he gets involved with, he's having sex with the people. Every job.
Okay.
Every job. He's a
So
porn addict. Yeah.
oh, okay, so I refer to this kind of thing as a hole in the soul filler. When you're not well and you're not whole and complete as much as humanly possible. And this roots back to attachment theory and John Bowlby. Very important concept, because if we didn't have this good enough parenting, if we didn't have parents that soothed us and gave us eye contact and security, if we didn't have parents that were in a good way structured and bonded between each other, if we didn't have all of that, which many people, many people, we don't have a lot of that. left in our society. And so that's why it's so important to understand attachment theory, because if we don't have this secure, unconditional, loving first few years of life, then we get what I refer to as the hole in the soul. Okay. So you have yours and he has his. And unfortunately, you guys weren't in couples therapy together so that he could work through his and you could work through yours, and then create a third entity called a we. Okay. I'm skipping to my panel number 7 so that you could see what we looks like. So if you could put that, thank you so much. Okay, so panel 7 you could see is synergistic, because if these round globes represent you, your individualism, and your partner's individualism in a healthy relationship, two healthy people coming together are going to create light, a third entity, which I call 1 + 1 is greater than 2, or 1 + 1 is the 3 phenomenon, where the 3 is the we, okay? And you're building we. But in an unhealthy family, it's almost like panel 7, 8, 9 doesn't exist. So, like my panels would be reduced in an unhealthy relationship to 6 panels: wounds, reactions, encodings, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, and then cycle through again: wounds, reactions, encodings, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, and that's it. Okay. And so there's no real blueprint for 7, 8, 9. Oh, get it? So what's left, especially in the narcissistic defense, is they're trying to get this horrible pain out of their psyche, out of their soma, out of their system, and they try to do that by, again, filling the hole in the soul and then making the other feel less than. It's almost the more, which is part of the hole in the soul filling attempt. The less you feel, the less than you feel, the better they feel, but only temporarily. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable. It doesn't really benefit anybody, but it's a try, because when you're full of poison, you just want to get it out of you. So, okay, so can you understand his wounds, right? And then your wounds are being molested. And then we're always drawn to that WTF energy of trying to repair with the person that hurt you. I have an episode up there that I think is a really important one for everybody to watch, called "The Hurter Cannot Be the Healer." Okay. So in a nutshell, okay, in a nutshell, we always go back to the hurter because we want to complete this WTF. We want closure on it. So, we're not going to go to the nice guy to complete this incompletion, because there's nothing incomplete with the nice person. So we go to the hurter, and you can't go back to your parents because they haven't done anything to complete it. So you go to the next person who holds the energy of your parents, holds the dynamics of your parents. And so the game looks something like, okay, I'm going to complete it with this person. And then if I do, I'm basically going to redeem my horrible core beliefs about myself. So if I can get this person to love me, get this person to see me, then I'll repair all my childhood wounds, wipe out all my horrible core beliefs that I'm not lovable and not enough, and I win. See? Right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and that's why I'm not saying that that he would have been motivated to come to therapy, but I've had people who have had severe narcissistic traits come in. I had a wonderful experience with a couple who flew in to see me, and they did a marathon and really dedicated themselves. And really what it took was such a great big breakdown for the breakthrough. It really did. You know, and
Mm.
sometimes that's what happens. And it's so much better therapeutically when the downs occur and the therapist can intervene so that we could take a look at the causal, so that there's something behind the scenes. And people think that they're
Yeah.
at it with each other. They're not at it with each other. I mean, they are, but what's happening is that this whole blueprint was set up way before they even met each other.
Right.
See?
And there's so much deceit involved, though. You see, there's a deceitful role with him that he doesn't want to get help. He doesn't want to be helped. I mean, he really doesn't, because we've been to couples therapy before with a Christian counselor.
Okay.
And the man said, you're both so broken, and you can heal together broken, but you have to take apart the root cause. And there's no absolute way unless you do it individually. I know that.
100%.
I love your technique.
No, thank you. It takes a certain skill to deal with this, because again, and you know, I didn't have a mind map when I first became a psychologist. I created that years later. So what I had at my fingertip access was psychoanalytic thinking, which I think is amazing, and a lot of the concepts of my mind map include psychoanalysis and cognitive behavior and neuroscience, and understanding philosophically that consciousness is causal. So if you're in the consciousness of victim, it's going to have a horrible outcome of chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And if you're in the consciousness of control, same thing. So we have to really watch our consciousness. Nobody taught me this. And so it takes a special system of healing to approach it. And even at the very best, people who have a huge defensive structure of narcissism oftentimes don't want to come to therapy. And if they do come to therapy, they come to prove that they've checked the box of coming to therapy, but they don't really want to touch their childhood wounds. So it is challenging.
Yes.
Very, very.
It is very challenging.
Yes.
It is very challenging because I do not want to, I want to get over this hump and never have to go through this ever again. Like, this gentleman has been in my life since I was 18 years old. Okay, and so, I'm 51.
Okay. So just
I've been married to him for 15 years, and he's always come back, and I just don't want him thinking he can ever come back.
Okay.
You know, I mean, he filed for divorce, but I think he did it impulsively because I ripped that mask off, and he just consistently lied to me. He still tells my son that it never happened and I went crazy, and I never went crazy. I have my full faculties. I feel bad about the defamation of my character that is proposed on me, and I don't know how to stop it. You know, I feel like I have lifted a ton of weight off my shoulders because I'm in a lot of these groups, and from what I understand is these people do not change. There's no hope for them. They are really at the end of the rope.
People who have been motivated, and we got through it. Okay, so I'll take the stand of it is possible. It is possible for people with deep narcissistic traits to paradigm shift out of it. I'm a witness to it. It's very hard work.
Okay, good.
It takes
hard work. Yeah.
Very, very hard work. And on the part of the person too, and the special skill that it requires on the part of the therapist is to become non-judgmental and to help the person understand that how they're being is a result of their childhood wounds. So once you get them on the side of, you see what you were set up to do? This was, you know, I say in my book, flat out, part one of your life, you are not the cause, you're at the effect of. And so the whole process of the mind map is to put you in the causal position, or the person who's been set up to be demeaning and devaluing, destroying as a defense mechanism, to understand that this defense mechanism is only going to backfire on them. Okay, it's not sustainable. is only going to repeat and repeat and repeat, and they have to divest themselves of their own defense, from their own defense mechanism. One of the things that I've really, really come in touch with in this process is that in the case of narcissism, they're playing a different game of life of control and manipulation. Okay, understood?
Right.
That's the game of life. And the normal bell curve, we don't necessarily put all that much stock in just controlling and manipulating. We want more intimacy. So we want more love and intimacy. But that game of life could also turn on you, because if you're a love addict or if you're a codependent or a people pleaser, then that game could also come from the wrong consciousness. But if it's from a healthy place, if I'm a human being, I want to trust, I want to love, I want to be loved. If it's coming from that place, right? And you could clear out the wounds of childhood, then you have a chance of then being with a person that wants to share that game board with you. And that's the synergistic game board, panel 7. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your vulnerabilities, because look, you've been with this man since you're 18 years old. You're 51 now.
Yes.
You're vulnerable to him. You see, that's the thing, is there's this addictive quality, this also sexuality that I have seen people suffer from withdrawing from. So the more you keep away and not see him and not smell him and not hear his voice, so just not be around him, and the more you invest in yourself, okay?
Yes.
Then you're gonna, hopefully the goal is that you create critical mass, so that a person like that, it as a healthier version of you, just sounds really unattractive. That would be the goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Kind of like,
like,
this is a stupid analogy, but I'm known for my horrible little analogies here. But imagine you love Coca-Cola and you love the flavor of it, but it's not all that good for you, right? And so, right, you keep drinking it and you might get the little buzz and the little high from it. It's great, but then, it's not all that good for your sugar level, and it's not all that, it's got no nutritional qualities and so on. And pretty soon, if you start leading a healthier lifestyle, the best that I can remember from my own life is when I went on this really, really clean diet. It was called the macrobiotic diet. I should re-explore getting back on that. Although I eat pretty cleanly. But I remember when I was on that diet for many, many months, which included a lot of organic foods and vegetables and, just like a lot of
That's what I do. I have a very healthy diet with my son, and I make sure that we get it in.
Okay, so now,
and I've been going to church and I've been really journaling and, working as hard as I can. I'm a nurse, so I've been doing outpatient dialysis, and I don't have a regular schedule, but there are shifts that I take on all the time. And it's been a full book since I got this guy out of my life. I know he's not good for me. He's not healthy for me. All my life, it feels like it's been a struggle.
Remember, Krista, there's a difference between logic, what you just said. I know he's not good for me, okay? Versus ugh. Right. Okay, so how do you get to the ugh? This just doesn't even tempt me. How you get there is, I believe, that health begets health. So if you're on this healthy diet, so to speak, of eating well and spiritually you're going to church and you're building yourself up and you're psychoeducating yourself psychologically, and you're doing all of these good things. I remember after many months of this diet, I did have an ice cream cone or something sweet, and within like a very short period of time, I was running to the bathroom. I had major stomach cramps. Okay, so do you get my point that health begets health? So keep investing in your health, and then the goal is that this critical mass will flip over. That's the paradigm shift.
Right.
Okay, where you just like, oh, this is disgusting. This doesn't feel right. This is alien to me. It doesn't it doesn't align with who I'm being. Okay, makes sense?
Right. Yes. And I had that awakening moment. As a matter of fact, I've been going to this woman for 2 times so far. It's a full body massage. She uses the pranic healing, and she's aligned my chakras.
Okay.
And you know, even she was able to tell me that from the time she met me to now, and he had one visit with Blake since, that there was so much lactic acid in my muscles that built up from this one visit.
Right.
Because it triggered me. And I thought I was okay, but I got a lot of deep, deep work to do.
Okay.
Because I should not allow somebody like that to trigger me.
Okay, so there's your feedback.
But I can tell you this, he left his spirit in my home because I saw it. I saw the dark shadow. There was always a dark shadow by him. There's a devil that follows him, I'm telling you.
So
sincerely, like, he has that power about him to do that. Yep.
So keep aligning yourself with the light. You know, I learned this, that we could spend a lot of time fighting the darkness, or we can build up our light. And I just choose to build up my light because it's really, really tough to fight all the darkness. So just keep building, keep building, keep building. And then, you know, since you're into energy and healing and all of that, and you're a nurse and you're into healing, you'll find that you're just gonna not align anymore. Okay, so will you feel free, please, to reach out to me for a consultation? As a matter of fact, okay, we'll do one, and then let's complete this stuff for you, so that you don't have to keep circling back and doing the what the Freuds of life.
And it's so, like I want to be free, and every time I get to that cusp, I'm like, it feels like something is really trying to reach onto me, and it feels like an enemy.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's the only way I can describe it. Yeah.
Okay, so we can look at it from many perspectives: energetically, Satan, forces, psychological. Okay, but the bottom line is we want to make sure that you do not get embroiled in the what the Freud again with the new partner. So let's close the chapter on this whole dynamics, and then you will be in a much more sustainable place. Okay, so we'll pick this theme up, and I'll just talk a little bit more about couples. Thank you so much for calling in, and we'll continue.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Okay.
You're very welcome. So this, as you have all heard, is now the tail end of the chaos defenses and eventual divorce and breakdown of a system gone wrong. So hopefully you're getting the message of how important it is. You know, let's talk prevention, how important it is to do individual therapy even before you get in a relationship. Because if you don't, then you're going to be finding this partner to recapitulate your wounds with, because we all want to heal. It's not like we're stupid. We want to go back into the wound. We want to complete the wound. There was an experiment that I've mentioned on several of my videos. It was an experiment about closure or lack of closure. There was a experimenter, I believe she was at UCLA, Bluma Zygarnik, and what she did was she took students and divided them in 2 groups, and in one group she had them complete these nonsense tasks, and in another group she interrupted the nonsense tasks, and they were the exact same tasks, and she invited them back a month or 2 later to see which group remembered the tasks. And it seems like it would be the group that wish I had a call in right now, but okay, I'll give you the answer. It seems like it would be the group that completed the tasks, but that's not the case. It's the people who did not finish the tasks, which is parallel to finishing the psychological business. So if we don't finish our psychological business, it stands out in our mind, and then we're wanting to complete it, and we think about it as sort of like the letter that we mailed, that's done, versus the letter that we have to mail, which is on our minds because we're still outstanding. So it's like bookkeeping. If there's this outstanding bill or outstanding accounting that still needs to be complete, that's what's on our mind. And that's what we go for. It's that what the Freud repetition principle. That's why I named the show Dr. Judy WTF with the Freud, because we keep spinning through chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And what we need to do is dial it back to the cause, dial it back to the blueprint, and see how we've been blueprinted and injured, and the shadows that stopped our psychological growth, and why it is then out of that causal territory we are now picking the people that we're picking. Isn't it a better idea to finish the business with a neutral therapist than to drag our poor mind, body, and soul through another what the Freud with a person that is going to be also full of wounds and trigger us and create a lot of chaos, defenses, and breakdowns? So that's the importance of it. And if you are a couple and you're struggling, then remember, communication skills are just going to teach you to contain the anger or express the anger. But unless you understand the depth of where it's coming from, then it's just going to be on a very, very superficial level. Now, one of the techniques that I actually teach after we do all this in-depth work is something called the peaceful healing dialogue. And if you go on my website, psychologicalhealingcenter.com, you can see the peaceful healing dialogue. And this dialogue is a way to talk to your partner so that you connect as opposed to disconnect, because the whole purpose of this is healing human disconnect. And there are ways of speaking to people that is very disconnecting. And then there are ways of speaking to people that are connecting. And as you do this work, you don't want to then have dialogue that is going to be disconnecting. So along with the hard work of understanding cause, reactions, and codings, and so on, you then have a communication tool to bridge the gap. And some of the principles of the peaceful healing dialogue, if you go on my website and you go under, I believe, the form section, it's there. You can pull it off. It's free. You can print it out and hopefully use it and hopefully do the deeper work. So it's not just a technique without context. It's also in my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. It's very well described in there. And then the actual dialogue principles are in there. So I'm hoping that you're learning something. I do have maybe a little time for one call. Is there anybody else that's calling in?
Not at the moment, Dr. Judy.
Okay. So if nobody's calling in, I'll just continue with this mind mapping of couples therapy and how subtle it is, where people think, I'll get phone calls where, oh, Dr. Judy, we're having a hard time. We're having a problem. Well, what's the problem? Well, my wife is OCD and all she does is fluff the pillows and vacuum all day. Well, that's not the problem. That's the outcome of the problem, because we're taught, generally speaking, to focus on the symptoms as the problem. And I'm looking at it 180 degrees differently. These symptoms are the outcome of the problem. And the problem is the anxiety, because OCD, for example, is a defense mechanism against anxiety. And anxiety is laid down at a causal level by insecure attachment to the primary caregiver. So if we can go to that source as opposed to the symptom, you know how much money is spent on medication management? Sometimes it's appropriate to have medication, certainly if you're suffering from bipolar or psychosis. There's a time and a place for everything. It's just that it's got to be integrated also with the deeper work. Medicine is not going to be the healing factor. It could be part of the symptom managing factor. It could be healing in the sense that it dials down the amygdala and it creates a platform of emotional stability. And for some people, that's really, really important. So let's not, throw that concept out. It's just that when we do this work, we're really concentrating on going deep into these childhood wounds, and we're very organized about it. So it's not a case of you come in and there's a bunch of talk therapy. It's a psychoeducational healing process. So with couples work, I just wanted to reiterate the importance of the individual work taking place in alignment with the couple's work, so that once people do panel, say 1 and 2, they can understand each other's childhood wounds, because we can then have a couple session around it. And once they understand their negative core beliefs individually, we can then have a couple session around it so people can know what they're activating in each other. And once we do an inventory of the chaos that obviously is playing out in the marriage, and panel 4, the defenses, which are obviously helping people to seemingly protect themselves from being hurt in the marriage, then we can have a couple session around that so that better defenses can be incorporated into the marriage, and that people don't have to penetrate boundaries and walls that people are erecting. They can offer up a more empathic and more deliberate way of having each other's back and supporting each other's individualism. So it is just a bad idea to just jump into couples therapy and get communication skills as the main treatment plan, and sit there and watch couples argue, or sit there and watch couples deep breathe even to relieve their reactivity. It's a nice technique, but again, it's missing so many of the important elements of healing. So if you're a couple that is struggling, and you've got a lot at stake, because obviously you've been together, maybe you have children together, maybe you've got finances embroiled with each other. It's just such a worthwhile journey to take the approach of going to the causal level, so that you could truly have this opportunity to get the past and the shadows of the past out of the way of the marriage. Because if you look at it, it's like one of those bad Woody Allen films where, I think it was Woody Allen, or it was a comedy film where a couple gets into bed, and in the bed is, I wish I could remember the movie, it was pretty funny. The guy jumps into bed, the woman jumps into the bed, and then in the bed is also the man's mother and father, and the woman's mother and father. And so it's funny, because I talk so much about the multi-generational transmission process in the wounding, is that's in essence what we're trying to get out of the way. We're trying to get out of the way all of these multi-generational hand-me-down blueprints that have gone wrong, so that you guys have a chance to clear the slate, reboot it, and then shift out of it and truly be the cause of creating something better for yourselves. So please do call in. We're available for a full consultation, a 15-minute free consultation. The main point is that don't drop the person. concentrate on dropping the problem. And of course, there's some cases where the person that you're bonded to is just so destructive to him or herself or the marriage that it's not possible. And we recognize that. It's just that it's worth an opportunity to try to clear out these wounds so that you can have an opportunity to live life from a much more causal point of view. So thank you so much for tuning in. And we have an Instagram page, Facebook, and so come visit our social media. And there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening media-wise, which I'll announce later as it happens. And thank you, audience, for taking the time to psychoeducate yourselves. And remember, the more you know, the more you can pass down to the next generation. The more you heal, the more you're giving a healed blueprint to your children. So thank you so much for tuning in. Good night, everybody. And if you've enjoyed my show, please subscribe to my channel. If you need help, please call the number below.